Hey, welcome to week 4. So we are moving along in our semester and moving along in the course. Um, I'm going to talk to you today like this, and then I'm going to show you my screen, and we're going to look at a couple of things. Uh, I was going to do a PowerPoint, and I just decided, this week the connections that I want you making and the things that I want you thinking about are fairly straightforward. So I didn't need to necessarily do a whole PowerPoint. Might have been helpful, but sometimes I like to just look at my face on the screen. Isn't that fun? So I want to talk to you for a little bit. Plus, when I don't have a PowerPoint prepared and don't have clear notes, sometimes I just make really dumbass comments, and that's fun too. My first jobs, I after I got done doing my little paper routes back when we had paper that we worked with, my first jobs were in restaurants. I started at a restaurant, a steakhouse, local steakhouse in Battle Creek, Michigan, where I was a dishwasher. And I washed loads and loads of dishes every Friday and Saturday night. And then from there, I moved to doing prep cooking, prep work for the restaurant. And then I moved to doing line cooking and became a line cook, a grill cook, a sandwich maker, all different kinds of things. After I then moved to working at Bob Evans, where I was a griddle cook and I made eggs and omelets and pancakes and bacon and sausage. Um, my first 10 years in the workplace were in restaurant jobs. I worked in all levels of restaurants, all types of restaurants, and in multiple positions in restaurants. I did it all. Working in restaurants was a pretty good foundation for making me learn how to be a worker. And it could have sucked me in as a whole world. I really kind of loved working in that community and doing many different kinds of things in that community. It's a stressful, intense, high level environment. But here's the amazing thing. We often think of restaurant workers as just being like these people who do a drudgery work every day, where they go in every day and have to do all kinds of mindless body tasks, flipping eggs or putting down plates or washing plates. Um, but restaurant workers have an awful lot of knowledge to share the world. There's an entire culture of restaurant workers, and there's lots of meaning and knowledge and experience that restaurant workers have. They also have a lot of rules. We're going to watch a clip here from a show, and it's a really amazing current show. The first season's out. I don't know if they've got a second season out yet. It's called The Bear from Hulu, and it's all about this diner in Chicago where they make sandwiches. And that's all they do is just make sandwiches, and they have a lunch rush, and it gets crazy. The show's really beautiful, and great acting, great pacing, great story. So we're going to watch a clip from this, and this clip is a time when all the rules have to go out the window. All the expectations have to go out to the window, except for the unwritten rules of the kitchen and how you function. So we're going to watch this clip. This is what's happening at this moment. Is the newcomer in the kitchen has set up the kitchen with a new computer system that can take online orders. Except for when she set it up, she made a mistake. She didn't realize that she had to limit the amount of orders that could come in. So they turn on the system for the first time in the morning, right before the store opens, and they've got like 1,000 orders already set up, waiting to go, and it causes chaos. So we're going to watch this clip. Means I have to share my screen. Sorry, I thought I had it set up, and now I got to go fumble around a little bit. Let's try this again. So I will warn you before I start this clip that there's a lot of cussing, a lot, and it's because it's a kitchen, and you can't work in a restaurant kitchen without cussing. It's just illegal to do so. The clip that we're going to see is intense and has a lot of pressure. it's a kitchen, and it makes you feel that. So if you're sitting around children, you might want to, and you don't want them hearing cussing, you may want to put on your headphones or wait till they're not in the room. If you're sitting around other people who don't like cussing, you may want to warn them that this is about to happen. Here comes the clip.
Hebrew, make sandwiches. Don't stop making fucking sandwiches.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna make 3 sections, okay? They're gonna be wet, hot, and sweet. All right, I'm gonna take green tape, make those sections. Louis, I want you to get the sandwiches, put them in the corresponding sections.
Okay, yeah.
Yo, sweet, bag, Sharpie, label that shit, please, chef.
Yes, sir.
Can fire every single chicken we have, please, okay? Richie, do you even know how to do fries?
Yes, I know we need them now.
Okay, Marcus, where are we on cakes?
Get in there.
Getting there. What the fuck do you... Marcus, what the fuck are you doing still working on this shit?
Yo, come on. What are you tripping for?
Come
The
on,
cakes are
what
in
the
the
fuck
oven.
am I tripping
If I'm
for?
doing
Are
this
you
till they're done,
here right
it doesn't
now?
make a difference.
There's 4 cakes and still
Yeah, I
not...
was going to cut them.
They're not even cut yet?
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Yes.
Chef!
I'm doing them in 5, basically. I'm gonna pour them in
Stop.
5.
Everything, fire everything right fucking now.
Okay, I'll fire everything now. I just was finishing
Step
talking
out.
to Marcus and
Step out.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to Marcus.
Now get the fuck off my expo chef now! Get the fuck off! Thank you! We're firing 76 beefs, 34 chickens, okay? 12 french fries, 12 mash, fucking now!
Yes,
Thank you! Corner. Oh.
You didn't say corner. You didn't say corner.
Fuck
You don't-
you, Richie.
You don't need to curse at me
Fuck.
like a maniac. You didn't say corner.
Fucking maniac.
It's your bullshit that fucked us today, not mine. It's your bullshit.
Fuck you, Richie.
Sydney.
Fuck you.
Like that face, Louis.
It's an amazing show, and this is Humanities. So if you want to go have a really good experience with an art form, go check out The Bear. It really is great. So we're gonna. I want to talk a little bit about rules today, of course, because that's our theme this week: rules in food. And in a kitchen, those rules are essential. You have to know the order, who's in charge, and who's second, and who's third. You have to know how to do things like how to drop chickens or how to make fries. You have to know how, when you walk around a corner, you have to say corner, or behind you, or beside you, to your left. You got to know how the lingo of the kitchen in order to be able to survive in a kitchen. It's an intense space. I was the head line cook of a restaurant once, and we had a guy who worked the grill and worked our secondary grill, and his job was to make hamburgers. And we had rules for how to make the hamburgers. He had training on how to make the hamburgers. It's not all that hard, you throw the meat on and you time it and you think about it and you flip it, and then you flip it again, and then you flip it again, and then you flip it again. And if, depending on what temperature the customer wanted it, you take it off, put it on a bun, and you're ready to go. This guy was a hard worker. He wanted to be there, except he didn't know how to stay a hard worker. He didn't know how to stay connected to what he was doing, and he would invariably mess up almost every third burger. He wouldn't flip it. He would forget it was there. He would flip it once or twice and take it off when it was raw. He did not follow the rules. And he didn't follow the rules of the chain of command either, because he would get kind of prickly when people would tell him how to do it. He didn't last long. He ended up leaving the line and leaving the restaurant, because if you don't follow the rules in the community, you get kicked out. This week we're talking about rules in food. There's a real reason why we're talking about rules in food in a humanities course, and that's because one of the things that we have to know about cultures, about communities, about groups of people, about things and events, about pieces of art, pieces of literature, music. Every little step here within the humanities has rules. There are rules, written rules and unwritten rules, about how a piece of music works. There are rules about the ways that a film is supposed to be made. And there are probably rules on set on what one can and cannot do. There are rules about how to read a book or how to use a book. There are rules for writing. So whatever piece of culture it is that we're looking at within a humanities class, one of the ways to go about understanding that piece of culture is to look at the rules behind it, and look at how those rules determined what happened and what was meaningful. Now, rules aren't the only thing we look at. There are many things we look at when we look at a piece of art or a piece of culture, but rules is one way to give us a new analytical framework on whatever it is we're looking, whether it's a painting, a community neighborhood, a piece of a street art, whatever it is we're looking at. Understanding the rules under which that was made is important. Of course, we also have another reason why we're looking at rules this week, and that reason is because of our assignment. So I'm going to go to our webpage, our Moodle page, as soon as I can get it called up, because for some reason I clicked off of my browser. So our assignment is an assignment happening within an academic setting. And as you both know by now, if you've been on this campus now for 4 weeks, or this is your 3rd year on this campus, as you know, there are lots of rules on a college campus. We have rules for how to register. We have rules for how to get financial aid. We have rules for how to drive in the parking lot. We have rules for classrooms, and we have rules for assignments. So the rules, understanding those rules, helps you be successful on a college campus. It also helps you understand the nature of a college campus. What does this community mean, and how do its rules help us determine what it means? So we're going to look at our course here for a second and think about rules as a way of expanding what we're thinking about for this week. And I'll just point you to our syllabus for first off. I may need to now stop sharing, because I think I may have just messed it up. After 3 years of Zooming, I still get lost in how to function on a Zoom screen. So I'm very sorry. Let me try this again. So we can go to our syllabus, and one of the things I forget about when I'm doing Zoom is that I can screen share, but then if I try to go to a different link or a different image off of that screen share, I lose the screen. So I'm just going to talk about the syllabus. You can go to our syllabus and you can see a lot of rules there. Rules on how this course is supposed to be run, rules on how you're going to be assessed, rules on the work we're going to do. And we are looking at rules this week. So I want to remind you of these rules. Rules for how to do writing, rules for how to communicate in a classroom, how to participate. I haven't seen a whole lot of rule breaking, a couple of instances in journals or in discussion board posts where somebody is plagiarizing, but not real serious stuff so far. But I have seen some people who have not really thought about the unwritten rules of a community, about what it means to participate and what it means to talk. That's one of the reasons why I shared with you this week academic literacies, discussion boards, and the situation of reading and writing, because I want you to think a little bit more about how you are engaged here, how you're meeting the terms of this class, and the rules of just common discourse with each other. Think a little bit more about how you're putting stuff in to this course, and why that action is meaningful. I also have for you to read this week 4 keys to writing in the humanities. And while these aren't particularly rules, they are guidelines or suggestions for how you can get really productive academic work done in a humanities classroom. And then, of course, we have our assignment for the academic essay, which has some rules in it, has some guidelines in it, and then, of course, is built on the whole rule system of how to do work on a college campus. One of the primary rules of that system of work on a college campus is the rule of academic integrity, that the work you do has to have integrity. And integrity there is not just talking about not cheating, although we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about that. Integrity means like you are actively engaged in trying to get something out of that work. We're going to talk about this academic essay next week. I'm going to have a video on it, and we'll talk more about how to do this and how to think about it. But what I want you thinking about right from the start is that the goal here is not to turn in some writing for a class. The goal here is that you create something, because that's the whole purpose of going to college, to learn how to create and create meaningfully on a college campus. So with that includes the idea of the academic integrity of your own work, where that means it's authentic and actual and all your own, unless you have cited things within it. Cheating's not allowed. And for my purposes, and I think for many people on a college campus, the worst thing you can do is plagiarize. And let's think about why that is. Why is that such a rule? And actually, why is that a rule that defines the culture of a college campus? It is a very humanities-based question. Why do we have such a strong rule about plagiarism on a college campus? Well, here it is. We are a college because we believe in the power and the importance of ideas, and we honor those who come up with ideas, who can state them clearly in the world, who can change our world with those ideas. You learn about them in your fields. You learn about them in your general ed courses. You learn about them every time you pick up a book. And you also learn that you have these professors who have done some amazing work in their fields, and you have scholars that you study and that you cite. And then hopefully what you begin to learn is that your own voice matters. The reason why you're studying all this stuff is because your voice, your ideas, your analysis matters. And when you plagiarize, when you take somebody else's work and you put it into your own as if you had done it, you have disrupted the whole purpose of what we're doing here. When you take other people's work, you have pretended like you did something that you didn't. And that's you've defeated your own purpose for being on this campus. You want to be here to be a professional, to learn how to have a voice, to learn how to say things in the world. And if you are taking somebody else's work and presenting it as your own, you have not learned how to do that. But not only that, you've also stolen the ideas of somebody else, because all we have to trade here on a campus is our ideas. You've stolen it and presented it as your own. And then, of course, you've disrupted this notion that we have on this campus of sharing ideas equally, that your voice is as important as mine because you have ideas and arguments you want to make. And when you plagiarize, you disrupt all of that. And this also goes if you pay good money for your paper, or if you get a computer program to write it for you, you are misrepresenting your own work. And of course, that's not allowed because it's a hard rule. Understanding that rule means you are understanding something more about college and what its purpose is. You are 25% done with the semester so far. And I've asked you to talk about that a little bit. One of the things that I've noticed people saying is there's a lot of reading. And I want to address that for a moment. This week, you did have 3 things that you had to read for this course that are about the actual work of the course: 4 Keys to Writing, the Academic Literacies lecture, and the project assignment. That was a little bit extra this week because you need to be able to read those things. But what I did once I assigned those things was I looked for shorter, more digestible texts. Notice you got 3 videos and then 1 reading out of those texts. So I changed the nature of our experiential part of the course and gave you more things that you could do in just like 10 minutes. Rules of St. Benedict might take a couple more minutes than 10 minutes, but still, each of these are not very long. I want to make sure you understand and remember, this is a completely online course. If we were in person, we would be meeting 3 days a week in the classroom for an hour period. So 3 credit hours a week. And then on top of that, you would have readings and you would have experiences and you would have work you would have to do for that classroom. This course is not a heavier course than what you would have online in person. They both are heavy because they both have to meet a minimal standard. What I'll ask you to remember is that scholars, people who study student success, say that the most successful students are those who can work 2 hours outside of the classroom for every hour they are in the classroom. That means you're in the classroom for 3 credit hours, and you're working 2 credit hours per. After that, that's 9 hours a week doing work for one course. If you have 5 courses, that's 45 hours a week of work for school. Well, the same goes for an online course. In fact, it may be even more than that, since everything in an online course is reading. You have to guide yourself through the textual experience. But I'm not assigning more than 9 hours of work each week. If this is under 9 hours, I make sure that that's the case. So please bear with the amount. It is complex. You have to navigate your way through it, but it's not an overload. You just have to learn how to deal with it. Let's get back to food and rules. I thought about doing halal food rules and kosher food rules from the religious texts of Jewish people and from the religious sects of Muslim people. I decided not to do that because, a lot of us have those rules very close to our heart. We follow those rules very closely as a part of our daily practice. And I decided not to look at those texts as cultural texts, even though they are, and we could analyze them. Instead, I pulled out the Rule of St. Benedict. Now, this Rule of St. Benedict is a text in the Catholic cultural tradition, but it is not the Holy Scripture. It is instead a set of rules that was written by Benedict of Nursia around the year 500 AD. And what he did here is create a list of rules for monasteries. If you don't know what a monastery is, it's important to know because they have had very important roles in our culture, not the least of which was saving texts and art from getting lost to history. So monasteries are religious orders of people who have separated themselves from the world and have dedicated their daily lives to prayer, reading, study, writing, and singing, and just meditating, and then sometimes farming and other things that they do. In the Catholic tradition, there are monasteries and there are convents. Monasteries are for men, monks. Convents are for women, nuns. But almost every formal religious tradition has some sort of monastery, some sort of space where people go and separate themselves from the world to study their religious being. The Rule of St. Benedict set up rules for Benedictine monasteries, and it's really an amazing text, a fascinating text. And I wish we were in class so that we could look at some of those passages together. I wish we were in class face to face right now so that we could look at those, because I've taught this text many times because I really think it's fun to read, and we follow some of the rules and get to know it fairly well. But you just read a short passage, and you read the passage having to do with food and the food rules. And I would bet in reading that passage, you got a pretty clear idea of what this culture was like, what it was like to be a part of this monastery. The idea of silence, the idea of service, the idea of self-sacrifice, the idea of living for your community. There is something beautiful in this idea, but it also gives us a sense of how hard this life might have been. And we can see into this community. We can begin to understand this community as a culture through the rules that they live by and the ways those rules are written. Our second text of the week was Horrible Histories by Dua Lipa, and it's a parody of her own song, New Rules. The song is presenting history in a funny parody song. And what's important that you see here is that this is not just a whole bunch of rules that she came up with herself and decided to sing about. This is actually taking written documents on how to hold a feast during medieval times, how to invite and entertain guests during medieval times. These are actual rules that are found in texts that she's presenting in song. Horrible Histories is a British television show made for kids, and they go back and they find fun and interesting historical stories and retell them in interesting, fun ways. And this song was just too good not to include this week. It also connects pretty well to the next song, or the next video, which was a short film by Emily Post on table manners. So this is a fascinating text, and the film itself is fascinating, and then Emily's Post's etiquette book is fascinating. Emily Post's etiquette book was written originally in the 1920s, and she wrote it as a way of establishing what is proper in a home for a person, and particularly for a woman. And she sets out all different kinds of rules about dress and behavior, the way to walk, the way to talk, the way to hold your hands, the way to have a drink, the way to have engage the opposite sex, and the way to eat dinner. This video came out later as Emily Post's name had grown and grown, and people paid more attention to what she was saying, and she had a very real effect on culture. This video was made as part of the series of her continuing to have that effect. And so it presents us with lots of the rules about how to have table manners. My mother was born in 1943. So she wasn't watching this video in 1947. She was only 4. But I will tell you that my mother was impacted by Emily Post and her rules. It affected our dinner times at times, because we often got yelled at for having our elbows on the table. It impacted the ways we would have. My mother would host a holiday dinner or a dinner party for people from my dad's office. She would set things up under some of Emily Post's rules. Emily Post seemed like it's somebody we could ignore, that didn't have very much of, that wasn't that important in culture, but I think she affected a whole generation of people on how they think about what it means to eat with each other. It's worth saying, of course, Emily Post was writing this for upper middle class and wealthy people. Maybe she was writing it for the middle class people as well, so that they could see how they could get into the upper class, and probably largely white people. She talks about how to have your servant help you. She talks about how to have your maid set up the table. So there's an idea of wealth here and an idea of whiteness here. But it's not only that was there, that's the case. I'm sorry, stumbling over words. But this had a vast effect on all of our culture, on what we think is proper, what we think is manners. If you want to understand the domestic dinner party, go read Emily Post. If you want to understand what it means to be proper in society, or what a proper lady is, go read Emily Post. It's a important cultural text, an important text to study in the humanities. Our last text for the week was Michael Pollan's Food Rules. And you've got one part of an interview that he did, and a question and answer session that he did. I asked you to just watch 10 minutes of this, or 9 minutes. It's a really great video. And the 20 minutes that precede the 9 minutes I asked you to watch is really great too, because it talks about the history of food science and the ways that American culture misreads what is healthy food. And it's really kind of fascinating, but it is long, and I didn't want to ask you to watch all of it. The part that we got to was how Michael Pollan decided to go out and search for rules for food. How do we know what is healthy for us? What is that? What do our instincts tell us? And then he created this book. It's a fascinating book, and it deals a lot with cultural input, cultural analysis. It's worth thinking about the rules of food, whether those rules are how to make it, how to eat it, how to clean up after it, how to create it. The rules of food can tell us a lot about the individual cultures we're looking at, just like the rules of any culture can tell us about that culture. And as people who are studying the humanities, exploring the rules gives us access into cultures. It gives us access into cultural texts because we can begin to understand how these things came into being. And then, of course, we have our food theme. The rules of food is a fascinating subject. Thinking about restaurants and their rules, thinking about your break room at work and it's the rules, thinking about TV reality shows, cooking shows, and the rules there, thinking about how what the rules say on the box of your mac and cheese, which I still have to read every time I try to make a box of mac and cheese. The rules help us learn how to exist within the cultures we want to exist in. That's our week. I hope the course is going well for you. Again, we are at the end of this week, 25% of the way through the course. That it means that if I was somebody who really paid a whole lot of attention to grades and points, your 25% of your grade is determined. If you haven't done anything yet, you're at a 75% possible grade if you do everything else perfectly. I don't quite work that way. I believe in allowing us to have time to work through our things. But you should know we're moving along quickly, and before long, we will be at 50% of the course done, and then 75% of the course done, and then the course will be done. Keep getting your work done. Keep doing your journals and engaged and with integrity. Start thinking about your paper, and we're gonna keep on moving in this class. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Have a great evening.